One thing that's probably got a bit lost in all the controversy preceding Horse's release is the fact that it's surprisingly funny. Its humour is pitch black, yes, and its comedic moments often dance on a knife's edge between laughter and revulsion, but writer and director Andrea Lucco Borlera's first-person narrative horror, his debut game created in close collaboration with Saturnalia developer Santa Ragione, is a fascinatingly singular vision. It's singular enough, in fact, that it's not an easy thing to effectively describe, but if you can imagine a sort of thematic reinterpretation of Animal Farm by way of Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo on one side and a memeable Gary's Mod video on the other, then Horses gleefully oscillates between them and lands somewhere in the middle. There are moments in Horses that will almost certainly shock, although it's far from the transgressive, decency-shattering work some have supposed it to be, and there are moments so outlandishly, intentionally stupid, the only response is to laugh. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two, Horse's idiosyncratic approach creating a willfully disorientating mood. Former film student Borlera's subversive tale borrows heavily from the language of cinema, his claustrophobic 4:3 aspect ratio, stark monochrome colour palette, and dialogue intertitles immediately evoking the silent movie era, with echoes perhaps of old newsreel propaganda. Mix in smash cuts, live action interstitials, split screen, and picture-in-picture, and the result is a restless, experimental amalgam of unconventional stylistic choices, realistic textures clashing with amateurish, awkwardly animated character models, unnervingly extreme close-ups, an almost complete absence of diegetic sound replaced instead by the incessant whir of an unseen film projector whose oppressive, destabilizing ambience can't help but unmoor. Enter Anselmo, Horse's blankly naive protagonist and player surrogate, who, on the cusp of his 20th year, is dispatched for 14 days of work on a remote farm. Perhaps, a blunt birthday missive from his father suggests, it'll be character building. Perhaps it'll help him finally start acting like a man. The world of Horses, we soon learn, is one of moral extremities, exhibiting its own exaggerated framework of societal expectations and norms. And so begins a 2-week apprenticeship deep in the Italian countryside that rapidly takes a troubling turn. If the avuncular farmer's firm instructions never to enter his room weren't enough of a red flag, we soon meet his prize horses, naked, filthy humans with rubber masks clamped to their heads, whose atypical nature takes an alarmingly long time to be acknowledged by anyone. It's an absurd, outlandish image, but also a sympathetic one, their pixelated nudity emphasising their dehumanising existence rather than intended for titillation. It's also an image likely to provoke an immediate emotional response in players, but Anselmo, blank state that he is, merely pushes on, bound to the inescapable rhythm of the farmer's strict regime. Daybreak means breakfast, 3 cheerfully decorated biscuits cheekily foreshadowing the events to come. Then it's out into the world as the working day begins. Initially, the chores are mundane. You'll traipse from tool shed to vegetable patch to horse pen and back again, watering crops, feeding animals, gathering up poop, and whatever else the farmer demands. Occasionally, visitors will come, expounding on the philosophy of Horse's exterior world before vanishing again, and the day ends with an evening meal, a smattering of conversation, and perhaps a restless night of unsettling visions. But as rebellious forces begin to exert their influence on the farm's philosophical microcosm, predictable routine succumbs to chaos, and your days and the farmer's requirements grow increasingly extreme. Vegetable picking and wood chopping give way to burials and beatings. The days only grow weirder and bleaker across Horse's 3 or so hour runtime. But while Horse's content warning is expansive, it's perhaps a little misleading, implying an all-out atrocity-filled horror show that never comes. Horses, for all its strange, startling imagery, isn't that kind of game. It remains darkly whimsical throughout, frequently tempering its horror with humour, and even its most indelible moments stop short of gratuitousness. Yes, it delights in pushing buttons. You'll gasp, you'll wince, you'll almost certainly be lost for words, but it never feels flippant and never tips over into exploitation. Even so, comfort is clearly not the goal, and Borlera's approach seems specifically tailored to shake its audience out of a malaise. Horses is far from a subtle game, choosing to paint its themes in broad, bold brushstrokes rather than more deeply interrogating them, as happy to provoke a visceral response as it is an intellectual one. In that regard, it's a success, albeit perhaps a fleeting, insubstantial one, and the decision to include simple choices implying narrative malleability where there is none is questionable, occasionally creating awkward moral inconsistencies and distracting contradictions that threaten to muddy the message a little. But still, Horses remains a thoughtful, deliberate work, exploring its themes of oppression and subjugation and the cycles and systems that perpetuate them in engagingly unconventional ways. Sometimes with these kinds of tightly regimented narrative experiences, you find yourself asking, what does this story gain from being a game? And if there's an answer here, it's perhaps the sense of reluctant complicity and powerlessness that Horses engenders, of ineffectual resistance gradually giving way to something more hopeful. It's a rallying cry against hypocrisy, institutional or otherwise, and one that feels particularly potent right now as Puritanism and anti-intellectualism continue to exert themselves, and those deemed different are increasingly painted as a threat to society. Horse's approach, its delight in the grotesque, won't be palatable for everyone, but if it takes some clandestine head in a tool shed, complete with plastic horsehead wobble to seed its battle cry for revolution to make its audience sit up and pay attention, then so be it. 4 out of 5. Thanks for watching this review of Horses. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like and consider subscribing to Eurogamer for almost daily videos about video games. Goodbye.